Welcome to today's, another video about miracles and connection and just all the things of in the world of big miracle energy. Today, I am so honored to have two beautiful ladies with me that are also members of Lighthouse, Ewelina and Julie. And we're here to talk about an amazing weekend we had together. So, a little backstory, if you're not familiar, Lighthouse is essentially a mastermind, but really just with the intention of being the mirrors for one another in order to remember even more, to unpeel even more layers. And it's really this sacred space where we don't bring external things in. And we've had our challenges with trying to grapple through that and what that looks like. So if someone's struggling with someone, we don't automatically recommend a podcast or a book. Instead, we really have to reflect on our own experience, and share from experience and share from our own perspective. So this was just this past weekend. Wow, it's only been a week. This past weekend, we all three got together down here in Florida on the beach and had what most people would say a retreat by definition, but it was really the definition we have today, where it's like we go in and we do all these hard things and there's lots of structure and that provides the transformation at retreats, was completely the opposite of that. Our Lighthouse retreat was, and really was a place of ease and space and trust. And I think bringing us all together here to share, you'll get to hear like how we all grappled with that in our own ways and how some of us were already living that way, but how this provided even an extra layer. And I know for me, it wasn't even just the weekend, it was the planning. And I think even sometimes our discussions on the Lighthouse meetings ahead of time, I was like, have no expectations. There is no plan, which at one time I remember you, Julie, you're like writing down, no expectations, no plan. So yeah, this is just going to be a free dialogue. If you're tuning in, we're going to really share with you how transformation and remembrance and just aha moments can occur in this like beautiful place of peace and trust. And it doesn't have to be painful and it doesn't have to be super structured and you don't need the exact ingredients. Yeah. Yeah. So do you guys want to go around and maybe give like a little introduction of who you are and whatever you feel called to really share in this moment? Julie,
Oh,
you
you
want
want
to
me
go
to
first?
go first, Evelina?
Sure thing. Julie, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Julie Hamilton. I have been working with Ashley individually, one-on-one, as in a coaching arrangement for 18 months. And then Lighthouse started just in the last 6 months. So I've been lucky enough to be able to work with her in multiple capacities. And then, of course, with Evelina over the last 5, 6 months. The reason I engaged with Ashley in the beginning was really around some areas of my life that I felt like I was stuck a bit in some patterns that I had awareness about, but and I'm a coach myself, but I was like, I can't quite see how to get through this. And so that was really, we met as we all meet people along our journeys in life. We met at an event that I went to, a one-time event, sat next to her, we connected, and she's been guiding me and helping me so significantly in transforming my life and changing some of the patterns that like I said, I used to feel really, really stuck in. So yeah, I think that's all I want to say. I don't want to carry on because we want to talk about our retreat, our non-retreat. And Ewelina, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Mm-hmm. Hello, hello. My name is Ewelina. I have been working with Ashley in the Lighthouse group for the last 5, 6 months. But we had met last year in St. Pete when I was down there. I live in Connecticut, but something pulled me to sublease in St. Pete for a month last April. And so that's where Ashley and I got connected, also in a networking setting. And I remember her asking me some specific questions that at the time I really didn't understand related to some of the philosophies and teachings that she shares rooted in the course. But all the while, there was this deep curiosity and just this pull to want to know her. And I think her openness allowed me to also be so open. And we got brunch shortly after and maintained this relationship of just checking in with each other every month. And so then when Lighthouse came to be earlier this year, it was just the perfect opportunity for us to work together. And I knew because I shared with her at the beginning too, like, I know I'm going to work with you at some point, but I don't know what that is. And so that finally came to be with Lighthouse. And it's just been the most beautiful, transformative, illuminating, eye-opening, expansive, I don't know, all the things, moments for me. So deeply grateful. And especially for this weekend that we just experienced, which I'm also excited to dive into and talk about.
Hmm. Well, I didn't know we were going to start with all these like lovey Ashley things. Like, but I think like just your guys' shares a big piece that popped in my mind to explain to people is often like a mastermind is set up with like the guru like at the top and then people at the bottom. And yeah, I tend to facilitate more, provide more structure to it. But really, Lighthouse is meant to be like Ewelina has just as much to offer as Julie, as Ashley. Like it's really this equal playing ground. We really try not to create the hierarchy. And for me, in my mind, it's because I really want spirit to be the guide. I really want when I step into Lighthouse for the persona of Ashley to be just as much the learner as everybody else that is there. So like in those moments of guidance, I really hope that it's spirit coming through and I'm also receiving guidance from that. And I think that's what Lighthouse looked like. It was really, at least for me in the planning process, was the moments that like the persona Ashley and the old, I've been to retreats and they were transformative and they had breath work and they had all these massive things, had to really get out of the way and let spirit come forward and be like, we're going to pack paints and, we're going to just sit on the beach and we're going to pack books and, all these things that I was like, this sounds just like a vacation. There was moments that in my head I was like, okay, this doesn't seem transformative. And then the message, and not that something inside of me speaks to me, but if you know that internal just like knowingness was always that you are going to learn how much you do not need all of these things you think you need in order to really step in to truth and trust and ease and peace and really living in spirit. I mean, for me, this past weekend was full spirit. I mean, I had moments that we were on the deck and me and Evelyn, I feel like some of the richest moments happened on the deck or the beach, actually. I mean, were we really inside that much? No, to eat. I think that's about it. Oh, and watch the movie. That was good too, though, to watch the movie. But I remember we were out on the deck and I just had this really mystical moment of like everything outside around us, other than it was Evelina's face for a moment and then Julie's face for a moment, just like was no longer there. It was like just like this, I call it like laser vision. It was like we were fully connected at this spirit level, and all the distractions and things around me were just like gone. And I feel like that's where we were most of the weekend. We were kind of like one unit when I look back and think about like, oh, what about the experience with Julie specifically or with Ewelina specifically? And I'm like, I don't know. It's hard for me to explain that, but it really felt like we were one unit being guided by spirit and it just like flowed seamlessly. So that's kind of just a little bit of my take. I mean, there's so much more, of course, but I guess maybe let's start with like, what were you guys' expectations, even before I said don't have expectations? Did you have expectations? I mean, you both knew me pretty well, and I usually tend to throw expectations out.
Yeah, I think I can jump in here first. I really didn't have expectations, but in a way, maybe also I did in the fact that my expectation was that you saying that it's a non-retreat, like not that they were low expectations, but I was like, I really just don't know. Like, we're not gonna do maybe maybe I was anticipating not doing anything, but then I also thought that we were. And I think the thing that makes me laugh a little bit is when my mom was talking to me the day that I was heading over to the retreat, and she asked me like, "Oh, is your phone going to be off all weekend?" I'm like, "No, this isn't one of those retreats. Like I'm not going to be like totally unplugged." And we had talked about that the first night on the beach around setting intentions, and I realized that even though we're not doing a retreat in a traditional setting, there is still the presence that I want to maintain. And that was what was required of me turning off my phone, and that I actually really wanted to lean into and embrace. And I'm so glad I did. Um, and I think you expressing, Ashley, that there was no agenda, like I had maybe in my mind thinking that there wasn't going to be, but because I'm so used to the retreat setting and things being so structured, I think the part of me was still holding on to that, because when you said there is no agenda, I'm like, oh, okay, so we're literally just doing things day by day. And so
Hour,
that
hour by
kind of,
hour.
yeah, yeah, hour by hour, minute by minute. So that did leave me a little surprised. And that had me reflect that, yeah, in a way, I was still holding on to things being a little structured. I think because I had never done anything like this before, where there's literally no agenda. So it was very illuminating for me in that regard.
I love that. Julie, what are you feeling?
I fully was like, great, no expectations, because I've been calling it my summer of R&R, where I just daily am like, what do I feel like doing today? And I have had experience really with one of my friends has led me on three different yoga, we'll call them yoga retreats over the past 10 years or so. And although there was a loose agenda, I always felt like I could do what I wanted to do. So I was pretty comfortable with the no expectations. I will say the one thing that came up for me, because I've been doing Whole 30, which is a eating whole foods, if people aren't familiar, eating only whole foods, nothing processed. And I found myself not wanting to tell Ashley because she was planning the meals. And I was finding, so I guess my own expectations of myself were like, Ashley's planning this, organizing the food, organizing the place, like just go with it. Just go with it. And if she has food you don't want, so be it. But before we went, I actually did tell her, because I was very much, I'd already been doing it for several weeks and I felt really good. And I didn't want to disrupt it, even though I was trying to convince myself that we're going to this thing and I don't want to be the one. There's only a couple people there. I don't want to
Right.
be the one that's difficult. That's like, I don't want to eat that. So that was my own main thing that was coming up for me around expectations.
Well, and I think it was like the ego's way of weaseling in, because if you wouldn't have shared anything with me, that left space for resentment or irritation because I wouldn't know, but a piece of you is like, I can't eat this or that.
Yeah.
And for me, when I got that text message, it was literally like 2 days before, I think. Yeah,
I
like
know.
2 days. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Monday. It was Tuesday or Monday. It was after Lighthouse, because in Lighthouse, our actual group.
Yeah.
So FYI,
Mhm.
we meet every other week if you're just tuning in. And then
Yeah.
we have a debrief the Friday after the Monday we meet. So literally, we met the Monday before we showed up at the retreat on Thursday. And I got the message, and like the ego in me, the fear was like, are you fucking kidding me? Oh my gosh. Like, I already have everything planned. But then it was like, spirit was like, relax. You followed my guidance. And then I looked at everything and I'm like, whoa, like this seamlessly works out. Like everything I had planned to already bring. Yes, we were having pizza one night, but like I just messaged you and said that, and you're like, oh, I can get meatball. Like it, it could have been something that completely derailed and I could have hyper focused on and been like, this is going to ruin everything, blah, blah. I mean, I had hired a chef. That's another really
Yeah.
interesting piece is I had hired a chef. She's a clean chef, so she
Mhm.
cooks very clean, but I didn't
Yeah.
have Whole 30 in my mind.
Right.
And come to find out, she shows up, and I thought for sure Julie couldn't even eat the dessert because like Whole 30 and dessert, the two
Oh,
words
sure.
don't go together, I don't
Yeah.
think. But she could. Like it even eat the dessert. This chef I found way beforehand. So literally it was like all of this guidance I had received around even food. And many people are gonna be like, who cares about guidance with food? But if I wouldn't have listened, I could have had all these other elaborate things planned that were not very focused on, very clean or just whatever, but it
Yeah.
really just seamlessly aligned. And I think we both witnessed a miracle there of, you know, your shift in perspective of I'm not going to have private thoughts and
Yeah.
people please. I'm going to bring the darkness forward and allow it to be seen. And then me being like, I have to trust that I listened to spirit in this plan and it's still going to work out just as it should. And on a funny side note, I'm like, why in the heck didn't I send more stuff home with Julie? Like we had so much left.
We
Like
had
I've
so
got
much food.
turkey and
We had so
eggs and
much.
all this stuff. But that's a side note. Nobody cares about that watching. Um, but I think it's a testament to how fear attempts to come in, even in a place that like wasn't it didn't have a space for fear. I think that's really a big piece with Lighthouse too, is we didn't make room for fear. I think a lot of times when we go to retreat, it's like we're here to face the fear. Let's push through the fear. Let's get to the other side. And we're like, nah, we're just fear's not invited to this retreat. We're just only joy and love and peace. Um, yeah.
Well, I think the last point I'll make about that is like you said, I wasn't fearful that you wouldn't be okay with it. It was me. I was trying to tell myself, like, this is something you're attending and someone else is organizing, and you're just going to deal with it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you'll figure it out along the way. You don't need to ask for special, kind of circumstance or whatever consideration.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't about you. I knew the whole time because, like you said, we talked on Monday and I didn't bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tuesday, I was like, oh, I'm doing so well on this. I want to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I will bring different things if I need to bring different things. And that's why I told you, because I'm like, if I need to bring some chicken or something or whatever it is, I need to know now.
Yeah.
So appreciate it.
No, I think it was a perfect, I think those are the things we even miss in the process of transformation or remembrance is like, even though that seems insignificant, that was a massive part of the shift that occurred over this weekend,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
Okay, let's kind of shift to like, what, if you can think back, what was like your biggest aha moment after we made it through our first full day? So this would have been like mid Friday, probably. Share, what were your thoughts? What was coming up for you?
Yeah, I think for me, one thing that I recognized was how much I was able to easily allow myself to be guided in the moment. And I took it and I see it as a testament to how much I've been working on this part for myself because I am a planner. And if things don't go according to plan, I am unwell. And so every morning I have my routine. I do my yoga flow. I drink my water, my lemon water, all of that. And that's been something that I've been beautifully unwinding in Lighthouse with Ashley and Julie and Kaylee and everything because we're doing these intentional exercises to help us break routine and pay attention to where we think we know. So I think I've almost been like doing all that in preparation for this weekend, which was a test of like just going with the flow. And so yeah, I think like Friday morning when I woke up, normal, and I brought my yoga mat and I was like, oh, I should do yoga. But I was like, no, no. Like I didn't get good sleep. And I really just tuned into what I was feeling. And I did not observe any resistance, which I consider a big win for myself
Mm-hmm.
because normally there would be the grapple of like, but maybe, or the indecisiveness. But there really was so much peace and ease that I felt through the whole weekend. But I observed it especially after that first day because when I didn't do my morning routine and I didn't feel any resistance towards it, I was like, okay, this is good. And I'm just going to spend the rest of the day seeing what happens. And we ended up having a magical day. We went for I think that's the day we went for the walk and then sat on the beach. So it
Mhm.
was
And we made
beautiful.
it to the coffee shop like 13 minutes before it was gonna close, and we
Yeah.
had no clue. And it was like we walked for 13 hours in Julie's flip-flops.
It was perfect.
It was
Perfect. All
perfect.
without my morning routine. So that I think was a
Yeah.
good takeaway from the first day.
I just want to share it. So that first morning, Julie and I were on the deck for a while first, and then Evelina woke up, and then I was like, I want to go for a run on the beach because just became a runner. If you haven't watched that video, I have a running video, but I've never really ran on the beach out of joy. I remember one time I did it with a friend just because, I had to work out and it was the most miserable thing ever. So I'm like, I want to go for a run. And Julie was like, going to go for a walk. Originally, Evelina kind of had talked about doing yoga. This was like the day before. Like, we kind of all were like, oh, we'll do our things. And I remember walking back after I went for my run and seeing the two of you still up on the deck, deep in conversation. Like, I don't even think you realized I came home. And I was like, yes, yes, yes. Like, there was no angst or pressure to get out and you go do your walk, Julie, and Evelina, you to figure out what you need. Like, you guys just were really in that moment and just like, I left you there for 40 minutes and came back and you were still in that moment. And it was just like a realization of like, yep, we're going to do this. This weekend is really going to be like, we're all in this to like really live in the moment and to not have to do anything. But yeah, I had to share that because I just remember being like, yes, yes, we're doing it. We're doing it.
Yeah. And that conversation you and I had, Julie, was so beautiful that afterwards I was like, this is so much better than like not to compare, but like in that moment, if I would have forced the routine and all that, I would have missed that.
Yeah.
And it was such a beautiful moment that we shared in the conversation. So yeah, I think that anchored me into the presence even more.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I think that's I think two things. One of the biggest takeaways was because we were a small group, I found that really delightful because we each had time alone to do whatever. Like one day I walked off and did my own walk, and you two were sitting on the beach. That morning you ran, and Evelina and
Mhm.
I were sitting outside. Then there was a time where the last day where Ashley and I were sitting on the beach when Evelina took a walk, and I had held on to something I wanted to bring up till that very last minute. Um, but it felt just like you said, like it just happened when it was naturally meant to happen, where the time felt right, or I had had enough time to think about what did I want to say. And then we happened to be sitting there on the beach that last day. So
Mhm.
that was very easeful for sure. I think my biggest thing, and I brought this home with me and wrote it on my whiteboard, which is being with you ladies and on a specific weekend where we're together with the intention of space and ease and spirit it was like the permission that, and Ashley did write us a note that said I'm giving you permission, but also I gave myself permission to do things that I haven't done in a long time, such as notifying my sisters and my parents and my boyfriend that like I'm turning the phone off. And I meant it and I didn't turn it back on. And
Mhm.
I really just was like I wasn't angst I didn't feel angst about it. I was like this is important to me because I am living, I'm practicing living this way on a daily basis, but life happens. You can't turn your phone off every day, those kind of things. And I thought, this is such a beautiful opportunity because I'm in a safe space with people that I feel safe in general all the way around. And I was able to take advantage of that and give myself permission to do that. And it felt, I can't even find the word. I was like, I
Mhm.
can't find the word.
Yeah.
Magnificent. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think the phone thing was kind of used um against us as well, or attempted to be used against. I know we had that first day, and then afterwards I was like, wait, like it was just kind of known that Patrick and I wouldn't communicate, I didn't think, but like we didn't solidify, like, hey, I'm not going to be available. I'm going to have my phone out. Like, we didn't do that. So to me, it was almost like the ego leaving the back door open,
Mm.
to not being in presence. So I messaged him that night. Great. It was good. But then the next day I was for my run, and all of a sudden I heard the bird that we usually have on our deck, and he's been missing. His name is Reddington. I might do a video on him because that's very spirit led. And I had just had like this download of like, oh my gosh, when we stay out at the beach, because before we leave wherever we're going, we're staying at the beach for a month. And I'd already reserved an Airbnb that was across the street from the beach. And it was this yellow house that Julie and I and Ewelina had kind of like been in our awareness the night before when we were on a walk. And I was like, oh my gosh, this means I need to stay here. We need to stay here. I need to cancel the other Airbnb. We need to, figure it all out. And then I realized, and at first I was like, oh, I'll deal with it next week. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have till 4 o'clock today to cancel that other Airbnb if I want any refund, right? There wasn't even like 50% after. And so I got back to the Airbnb. You two were still on the deck. I got my phone and I typed it up. I typed up the message to Patrick. And then I was like, wait a minute. No, no, no. This, like I already said, I'm being present here, and I know spirit led me here. This is supposed to be a weekend of presence and to be fully in the moment. And I deleted it and I said, okay, spirit, if we're meant to stay at that other place, like something will align later, right? It's not my worry. I'm not in charge. I don't need to handle it. And then I flowed back in, but it was so sneaky because I didn't
Uh,
even correlate like this goes against the rules. It was just like this needs to happen. It needs to happen now. And I think that's what we're so used to when we see something or want something or whatever, especially in America. We've just been taught like you do it then, you drop everything and you get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I fell into. And man, I felt the miracle when I pushed through. I was in the shower and I like kind of started crying and I was like, why the heck are you crying? And I just realized like this was a beautiful backdrop for again, some fear and shame and guilt to bubble out. Cause we talked about that. Like while we were experiencing this like peace and love and ease, if fear can't coexist. So that I think for me at least, I can't speak for everyone, there were small moments that like it was like I wasn't experiencing it per se like actively, but I could just like see it being like, oh, here goes some of that, shame or guilt or fear or whatever, and it tried to come up in the form of this or that, and I just we're not having it. You're not allowed here, and it just really bubbled out. So, and Julie, you did too about the phone though.
yeah. I had two things come up about the phone, but the main one was with my boyfriend that I was like, was I really clear with him that I was going to turn the phone off and that I wasn't going to speak to him until Sunday? Did he hear me? And I tried to convince myself, like, maybe I just need to make one more call, make
Mm-hmm.
sure that he's okay so that he's not upset.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, no, you told him multiple times.
Julie's probably one of the clearest people I know. So I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And then Evelina, even your decision to do it, that was such a beautiful, I mean, we'll say miracle, because I think there was a moment of correction of the way you viewed the need to maintain contact,
Mm-hmm.
especially with Lewis. Like we did a video yesterday that I don't know if it'll come out before or after this. I haven't decided yet. Maybe before, but there's a video where Evelina shares a miracle with her partner, which was literally the weekend before,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then you had to grapple with it.
yeah, it was actually the week of because
Week of, yeah.
yeah, it was like a few days after. It was this beautiful moment that my boyfriend and I had experienced of potentially almost breaking up, but then coming back together, and this was the miracle in love. And so it's interesting because when I've done these retreats in the past, it's never a question in my mind. Like I'm turning off my phone, I'm present, I'm here for the full experience. But I think because I wasn't anticipating turning off my phone, and then when we were talking about setting our intentions, and I recognized that both you, Ashley, and Julie were going to turn off your phones, I was like, oh, wait a second. I felt the pull like to do that same, not because the both of you were doing it too and I had FOMO or anything like that, but because I really wanted to really root into the presence of the experience in the weekend. So it was a grapple that I had with myself of, oh my gosh, do I now entertain this conversation with my partner around telling him, wait, hey, we can't talk for the weekend after we just nearly had this, break up and like really tumultuous but beautiful opportunity. And I just felt this closeness to him. And there was a fear around me potentially creating more distance after that. Uh, but that didn't happen. Actually did talk about it this week. This is something I don't think I shared with you, Ashley, and also didn't update you, Julie, but we did actually talk about it. And, he didn't reflect to me immediately and initially, but it did come up in conversation this week around that, like, it did set him back a little bit, like, oh man, we just navigated this, but then we have to take this break. But he handled it with such grace and love. And I was able to then reflect and talk about why that was also hard for me. And
Mm-hmm.
even though it was my decision, it wasn't an easy one,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt like it was necessary. And it was a beautiful moment too, because the fact that he allowed that to happen and like he wasn't going to sway me a certain type of way or didn't get upset about it. He honored my wish, even though that hurt him, because he obviously wanted to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
But that opened up a beautiful opportunity for us to connect and talk about that and how we both felt, and honestly brought us even more closer together afterwards. So it all ended up being really beautiful
And
at the
Julie even said that night on the beach. She's like, maybe it'll even bring you closer if you decide to do that.
end. Yes.
And I think that's a key thing to share here because for me as well, past retreats. I mean, Julie's been to yoga retreats that like sound amazing and you could just pick and choose what you want. Maybe you felt more that because you were like the friend that came with, so you didn't feel this commitment. But most retreats I've been to, it's very like structured. And if you want to get out what you paid, then you better show up to these activities. Otherwise, you feel like FOMO or what, pretty much FOMO. Like, what if I'm missing this stuff? And really, the structure, and I told you guys this when you arrived, is there's only invitations this weekend. That's it. Invitations. So, like, everything we decided, like, when people are listening in right now and they're like, oh, well, most retreats, you don't use your phone. They tell you they'll have a basket. Like, it's kind of like a forced thing if you plan to get the full experience, but literally everything we were like invitation, invitation. There was no judgment if someone chose not to do it. There was no judgment if someone didn't choose in the moment. I mean, Ewelina, when we went to bed that night, we didn't know what your choice was. You hadn't fully decided. You were like, I need to go have a conversation and I need to move through this with us. And there was no judgment. There was no, I mean, I don't even know how we even revisited it. I think maybe just in conversation the next morning of what that looked like. So yeah, I just want people like it was literally everything was an invitation,
Mhm.
whatever we did. And I think that's why it was so, like you said earlier, Julie, we had these moments of like two-ness, if you want to call that, where there was like two of us together because it wasn't forced that we all needed to be in this one spot at this one time. Even the painting came together so beautifully. Like if you guys think about it, so I love to paint on the beach. And before the lighthouse came up, Julie's like, we should finger paint. Or she, no, you brought up like, I want to finger paint, but it wasn't in regards to the lighthouse retreat. It was just like this
No, just in general.
in
Yeah.
general. So I was like, oh, we should finger paint. I have all these paints, blah, blah, blah. So like day one, we're like, let's paint on the beach. There was never space to do it. Then day two, was it Thursday? Oh, yes, Friday. So then day two, Saturday, let's paint on the beach. No space, no space. And then all of a sudden, we all just were like, let's paint on the deck. And it just
Yeah.
came together as like this most beautiful joining, but also it felt like an opportunity to express what we'd been feeling all weekend. I feel like when I look at Julie's, I can feel what she felt over the weekend. When I look at Evelina's, I can feel what you felt over the weekend. When I look at mine, um, and it couldn't have been more perfect, but I could have, as the like person who structured things out. Could have been like, what did we even do? Like, we didn't paint till the last minute. We haven't painted it, like all these things. We were supposed to build a sandcastle. Not supposed to, it was an invitation. We never built a sandcastle. Um, but even though to everyone's eye, we really like looking back and thinking in my head, we didn't do much like at the doing level, but I felt like we did so much. I don't know what you guys think. Like, I feel like we lived lifetimes over the weekend, but not in a negative, like heavy manner, but like a fast, like supersonic lifetimes manner in a weekend. What are your
Yeah,
guys' thoughts?
I do feel like time, I think it was when we were walking, I think maybe it was when you and I were walking to the little market, Ashley, to see to search for our oat milk.
Oat milk, yeah.
Yeah. It was like 4 o'clock, and I'm like, whoa, like this day passed by so quickly. Yeah, time shifted a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were moments where it felt slow, but then it also just went by so quick. But I think it's
Yeah.
because we were so present all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think? What were your feelings about the time?
Um,
I mean, you had no phone. You literally had no clue
yeah,
what
I
time
kept
it ever
saying I don't
was.
even know what time it is, and I'm okay with that because I
Yeah.
don't have a clock. I'm not on a clock.
Yeah, you said
Um,
that. Wait, you said that to me the one day because I was asking, and I remember it
I go, I
almost
don't
felt
know
like
what time it is.
yeah, my ego almost felt like it came in, and then I laughed and I was like, I know I don't want to know either, but we have a chef coming, and you're
You
like,
have,
oh
yeah,
yeah,
you had an appointment
yeah,
coming. Yeah.
yeah,
No, you're right. I was trying to really be in the like, I don't know what time it is. We're gonna do what we do when we do it. I think I don't know how I feel about the time. It definitely felt just like there was time for anything and everything. Like I brought a coloring book, I brought cards, we talked about whether we were gonna watch a movie, and what movie. I brought some magazines that I have had for 6 months and I haven't looked at them. We spent, like you said, so many hours on the deck and on the beach and walking and eating, obviously. And I just feel like I never felt crunched for any time, but I also didn't know what time. I was just like, we're just doing it. I'm just going to go. Okay, yeah, I want to do that. You guys want to, let's paint.
mm-hmm.
So it was lovely to not be worried about the time or fitting things in or like it never felt like we missed something.
Mm-hmm. And we just like eased into everything, and I
Even
feel
like,
like,
oh, I
oh,
was
go ahead.
sorry, can I interrupt you because it
Yeah,
just came to
yeah,
me real quick. After we paint, one thing you had invited us to do, and you brought the beautiful stationery, was if we wanted to write letters of gratitude.
mm-hmm.
And
Yes,
it's funny because I had actually got pulled out I have little cards, like with had a little puppy on it, so cute. I brought them with me because
mm-hmm.
I had thought about it. I was like, well, I might feel like I want to write some cards or, something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But that was something that after we painted was when I was ready. It was almost like the creativity, like up until that point, because and it was running, the chef was there preparing our dinner. That was like the one thing we had at a specific time because
Yeah,
he was there for us
mm-hmm.
making dinner. And I was I was done with my painting and I started writing the notes, and I guess I had written them in my head on the beach that day, but they just came out and like a lot of emotion came out with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that might have been why I was holding out on writing them over the couple days until I was really ready.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was really interesting to just I was like, my painting's done. You guys are still painting. I'm like, okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
ready to write my letters. I have a couple letters I want to write. And like I said, the emotions came out with it too, but not like not in a bad, just in a, I was writing beautiful things about people I care about, and some tears came with it. So
Yeah. Well, and you found out when you got home. You want to share that? Because
Oh
I
yeah,
feel
that
like when I shared earlier, I felt like we were all one. What I mean by that is really feel like we were connected to the oneness. We were tapped
yes.
into what is here, like spirit, God,
Yeah.
Buddha, whatever you want to call it. I really feel like we were tapped in. And then you share.
Yeah, so one of the letters that I was writing to a friend of mine, when I got back, she had texted me and said, are you okay? Because I tried calling you a couple times on Saturday. And I said, oh, I just got back from my retreat. I just turned my phone on. And I some time passed, and then I texted her and I'm like, what time did you call me on Saturday? And because I could feel it. I was like, I know exactly when I was writing that letter to her.
Mhm.
And this is someone I've been in friendship with for like 30 years. And she texted me a screenshot of when she called, and she called at 5:45 and we were eating dinner at 6, and that was right when I was writing the letter to her. And
Mhm.
I was like, I knew it. I knew it. She could feel it that I
Mhm.
was writing the letter to her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that's a wink, right? So I always talk about winks, and it's just those moments that you can really witness that, oh, yes, what I was experiencing is the case. Because I love that we followed this up with 2 minutes ago. Julie never has a clue what time it is the entire time we're there. But then the one moment she has
Oh,
time is the moment she gets to see the connection. Because I literally came out to
yeah.
Julie on the deck and said,
Yeah.
15 minutes and she's
Yeah.
going to plate the food, which
Yep.
was literally right at like 5:43,
Mm-hmm.
5:44. And you were in
Mm-hmm.
the middle of writing that. But if it would have been any other day, you couldn't have
Yeah,
correlated your
I would.
friend calling and you doing something. It would
That's
have
right.
just been like you figuring it out. So that's really a wink. And I to give a little backstory on this so people know, and shout out to, was it Good Juju Inc., you guys? I'll post it up.
Yeah.
They have an amazing box set of stationery that is literally has the quote, and I'll post it on this video about the butterfly effect and how essentially when you a butterfly flaps its wings or when you share gratitude and but impacts the world. So that was really my thought behind it was, first of all, of course in miracles, which I follow, shares that a grateful heart is so close to spirit. A grateful heart is a heart of love. And I was like, okay, what better way than to express our gratitude and to share this this magic that we unpacked this weekend. And so it was an invitation to write a letter of gratitude every single day. And none of us followed that invitation. We all, I think, pretty much did it the last day. Evelina, you did it the earliest the last day on the beach. And I kind of started with you there. But I finished all of mine after I kicked all your butts in phase 10. No, I'm just kidding. No. But it was super late at night and I finished like my last three. I had only wrote one, but it was like you, Julie, how you shared it was just like this inspired moment where like I just couldn't stop. It was just like
Yeah.
I couldn't, my hand literally could not write as fast as the love and gratitude was coming out. But you guys don't know this. So good juju. So I was really conscious about this retreat. It was really about all the money we all paid went towards everything. Like I didn't make any money, there wasn't any extra. And I wanted to have a very robust experience. So anytime something came into my awareness, I was like, I'm going to ask for a discount code. And we scored big on the Airbnb, which was beautiful. But Good Juju Inc., I didn't tell you guys this. I messaged them and said, hey, I see your stuff on sale at like at random other little shops. I would love to buy directly from you. I know this sounds crazy, but would you give me a coupon code? Like I was that girl. I was like, I'm just throwing out there. And they did. They gave me 20% off. So we all got journals and this thing at a really beautiful price. And it's gorgeous, amazing quality. So for me, I think that was spirit also showing me like just trust that like this is meant to be and it will align the way it will, like our Airbnb, as well. So Good Juju Inc. Shout out. Thank you for support. They probably thought, like when I asked, because I said I have an upcoming retreat, they probably thought I was going to drop thousands of dollars. And then here I'm like, $80. Thank you. They're like, what? We gave her this coupon code. She bought nothing. We appreciate you.
Mhm.
We'll buy more. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts about any of that, Evelina?
Yeah, no, I mean, related to the gratitude notes, that was interesting for me too because they were always in the back of my mind. Like, oh, I know I got to get them done. I think originally you had mentioned like doing one a day,
Mm-hmm.
and I just really didn't feel the pull to do it. I was like, but I also knew that I was going to get them done. And when we went to sit on the beach, it was like there was this knowing, like, I have to do this now. And that's when I wrote all of them. And it's interesting when I look back, like, because originally I thought, well, maybe I'll take my phone to the beach and maybe I'll just write in my phone, depending on what I'm feeling. And then I could rewrite them because this is the perfectionist in me. My handwriting, oh, we're gonna sit at the beach, so I might get them dirty. So I want to make sure I sit at a table. Like, I was like, no. So I brought them with me. And as soon as I started writing, it was one of those moments where my pen was just free writing. And I said exactly what I needed to say. And I think that was a really spirit-led moment for me and a reminder because this is also something I've been paying attention to in just my daily life of and you really helped inspire this notion for me, Ashley, is like paying attention to those moments where you're forcing,
Mm-hmm.
just those moments that feel easeful. And that was definitely a moment of ease. Like I felt the pull to do it now. Everything that I was saying was just flowing. And I think writing them on the beach was even more special because like I wrote these letters as I was looking at the beautiful ocean. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was just a lovely moment. So that I guess I'm proud of myself for that moment too, because I actually acknowledged and honored the pull instead of resisting it or letting the perfectionist mind take over for me in that instance.
Oh, I think we all like conquered something in those moments of gratitude. Like Julie, you wrote a letter that you thought was gonna be fun and lighthearted, and that's one that opened, Hoover Dam and allowed the flood to come through. And me, I remember for a moment on that last day when we got done with phase 10 and looking at the clock and being like, I am the one that like facilitated this and I have only wrote one gratitude letter. Like this is unacceptable. And I was like, it's too late. I'm not going to get it done. And then I sat down on the bed and I just had this knowingness of like, you were never supposed to do it before. You weren't ready. And then it just all over everywhere. So how cool. And I'll be like, it felt so cool. So I brought him to the post office. I have 12 letters of gratitude. I mean, just holding this like it's glowing pretty much because it's so filled with love. And we had to put some extra stamps on some, but I just had this like thought of there's so much love and gratitude in these 12 letters. And how many letters are they going to touch today? And even though they're not going to change the words in the other letters, they're going to impact the whole postal system is like glowing all over the country. I don't know if none of us sent them out of the country because I didn't have to put an outside stamp. If you did, like, I didn't put an outside stamp, so sorry, getting outside the US. But I just like realized, like, wow. I mean, just imagine it's like literally like what it says on there, the butterfly effect, not even just the letters being received, but they went through the mail system, like all of that love and just gratitude was like, I don't know, all over. Yeah. I had that like moment of, wow, this is pretty big.
Yeah.
And we all got it done. I really loved how I don't know. I feel like that last day and the picture we have of us with the bright pink behind us out on the beach, really reflecting on the weekend. And then coming back and ending it in the most light-hearted, fun, I know mind thrown out the window, playing phase 10. Like that was just, I don't know. I could have played all night long,
You.
and I still want to play right now.
Well, I
Oh,
thought it was. Go ahead, Julie.
only thing I was gonna say is my I know mind was saying, "There's no way we're gonna be able to play this whole game tonight. It's gonna take too long."
Yes.
And we
I
did.
thought the same thing. I thought the same thing because you said it, and I was like, "Oh, we're not gonna finish the game." This is my first time playing, but
Yeah.
because you had said, "Oh no, like you typically don't finish the game," and I'm like, "Okay, we're not gonna finish the game." But I couldn't stop. I wanted to finish the game.
Yeah. I remember you saying that and I don't know. I don't remember putting like a lot of weight either way of if we're gonna finish it or not. I was just like, okay, whatever, let's go. And I feel like we played a lot longer than the amount of time that passed on the clock.
Yeah.
I mean, it felt like we were playing so, like we had so many more rounds. And I don't know, I can only speak for me, but that night I realized, like, oh, we've been, or at least I have been fully in spirit all day today. And the reason why I noticed is tiredness is of the body. So when we're tired and whatever, achy, any of those things, it's because we're not in spirit. It's because we're in this belief that we're this body and fear and ego. And I could have been up all night. I just had like this endless amounts of energy. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm up all night tossing and turning. It was really just this like, it just was. It was just like, okay, what's next? And then that's when I wrote all those letters. And then another invitation I had for all of us was to write a letter to ourselves that I'm going to mail before we leave the country. I don't know. How did you guys feel? I just felt like,
Yeah, I felt the same way. I think I shared with you, Ashley. Like I went upstairs and I wrote that letter to myself, and then I was reading.
oh, yeah, I forgot you
Yeah.
read.
I was so energized. I couldn't go to bed. But I mean, once I finished, wrapped up reading, I was like, okay, I started winding down, but I was very energized.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not like our phase 10 game was like this brawl or, like this
Yeah.
You're
energy. And
sitting there
even,
playing cards. It's not like
yeah,
you're active, but we were, I mean, it was 10:30, I believe, when we were wrapping it up, the
yeah,
game. And I would say normally I'm like, okay, I got to go to bed at
me too.
10:30. Yeah. So I definitely read. I wasn't ready to write my letter to myself.
Mm,
That one was like, nope, that can wait till the morning. But I did
mm,
read for a while and get ready for bed and get a little organized. So yeah, I didn't like run in there and just jump in bed like I would have
mm.
thought I would have.
Yeah. Yeah, me neither. Like I'm surprised at that time of night is when like I'm falling asleep. Same
Yeah.
for when we one thing we didn't touch on is we watched a movie together. Which we watched a movie with intention. So I really started doing this with Through the Lens, and then I met David Hoffmeister, and he does movies where you just, watch it with Jesus. Kind of like my Through the Lens, where you get to heal through watching others, and you get to really understand the unwinding and just everything. And so we watched Wizard of Oz from 1939. And Julie asked me, I didn't plan to do commentary because I don't know why I didn't. I just didn't like it wasn't like this plan in my head. And Julie's like, are you gonna do commentary? And I was like, well, I don't know. And then I just felt inspired. And next thing I knew, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do commentary every 5 minutes. I did hold back because do you guys remember there was a little moment where like every other second I was like, and this, and this, and this. But I think for me, it was I had never watched The Wizard of Oz with Jesus or Spirit, or my highest self before, and I think many people kind of have like the idea of what Wizard of Oz is and knows it's kind of out there. But when we watched it together, like I would love to hear your guys's because I think this was both of your first time of watching a movie intentionally with your highest self, Jesus or the spirit, whatever you want to say. Julie, you watch some of my Through the Lens videos. You do too, Evelina, but this was really like a full immersion.
It was certainly helpful to hear just to get me like centered on looking at it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it's not something I'm practiced at. And the one thing that I noticed was as she's picking up her friends along the yellow brick road and the stories that they have about, I don't have a brain, I don't have a heart, and that she really was just like, well, then we can change it. If you think
Mhm.
that that's important to you, then we'll change it. Like she didn't buy in to like, oh gosh, that's terrible, and that
Mhm.
you think that, or that, yeah, how stupid is that, or whatever. She didn't buy into that. She's just like, oh, okay, if that's important to you, then look, come with me, and
Mhm.
we'll go help each other. So that was kind of my what stood out to me the most is like how her basically like I saw the unconditional love
Mhm.
that she was presenting to
Mhm.
these people, or beings that she was coming across.
Yeah. I love that because that's how like I see Lighthouse is like we don't feed into each other's stories. We're not rude about it. I mean, I think that's a big misnomer too. And we talked about it at Lighthouse this weekend where we've been like trained that if you're not polite or all those words of honoring someone's story by reiterating the truth of it, then you're a bad person. No, like Dorothy, how beautifully she didn't like it wasn't like she was rude and said, "Oh my gosh, you do have a heart and you're just crazy," or "Oh my gosh, you don't have a heart, that's so awful." She's just like, "Okay, let's go. We're going to the Oz." Like whatever, like that's
Yeah,
your story. I'm not going to question it for you, but I'm also not going to feed it. I'm not going to feed your
right.
story in this moment. So I love that that was your takeaway or one of your big takeaways because I really see that as how Lighthouse was and the whole weekend. I think Julie, when you came and you're like, oh, maybe I wasn't clear to him or something. If I had a narrative that was similar, I could have been like, oh my gosh, you're probably right. Like, I probably wasn't. Let's go. Okay, let's just, it's okay. 5 minutes. We'll go on
Yeah,
our phone. We'll just be clear. That's how we continue narratives.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, and it wasn't like we were dishonoring of like, no, I mean, Julie and I have close enough relationships. So I will be honest. I was like, Julie, you're the most direct person I know. There is no way you were not clear. But it was like in a lighthearted, fun, loving
Oh yeah.
manner. Um, but yeah. Evelina, what did
My
Wizard of
takeaway.
Oz?
Yeah. Yes, I agree with Julie. Like watching it from a different perspective was really, really interesting. Because I guess like it made me stop and think around when I watch movies, I don't really watch with intention. I just watch to watch. So like having the intention beforehand of like paying attention to what's happening and then almost like thinking about it through this different lens was really interesting. And then your commentary helped to anchor us deeper into that. But what I thought was even more so interesting were like the following days, how as we were having and sharing conversation, I would go back to the movie and like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is like you being Dorothy, or this is like, what was happening from different scenes and unfolding. So, yeah, I loved that not only were we able to watch it through this new perspective, but throughout the rest of the weekend, it's like we kept coming back to it because the lessons and the way that we were able to see that were so powerful and universal and applicable to so much that, we are navigating in our everyday, that I just saw it as almost like I don't know, like a full circle
Mm-hmm.
type of moment and an even nicer integration, I think. Because it wasn't just, oh, we watch a movie for an hour. Like, it's like this movie followed us throughout the whole weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was
Oh,
really beautiful.
I love that. And I'm so glad I mean, home is your everything when it comes to your brand. And, you did your, what's it called? Your thesis
Oh,
on
yeah. Uh-huh.
on home. And so, and we had asked you, have you seen Wizard of Oz? And you're like, no. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. And then that was before Lighthouse. And I was like, this is perfect because Dorothy is searching for home and finds out like it was always within her. She just wasn't ready yet. And that I love how Glenda shares that at the end. And so really, yeah, I think it went seamlessly with what your
Yeah,
just kind of heart has
it
been.
hit home a lot for
Yeah,
me.
hit home. I mean, we could just use home a whole bunch of times in
Yeah.
this right now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like we're almost at an hour, but I would love for you guys to share like if there's anything burning other than what what have you brought home with you? I mean, that we're all about integration at Lighthouse as well. And so this weekend was an opportunity to see how we can literally do this or pieces of this every single day at home. But what would you say your biggest like transformation or shift in perspective that you have taken from this weekend?
I have mine. The word really, the takeaway, the biggest for me and what was embodied in the painting that I was painting was ease.
Mm.
And remembering to come back to that, I think everything that we did was rooted in such ease and was such a testament to how so much remembrance and like healing and growth work can really happen with like little to no effort in a way compared to what I'm used to. And again, because I've done a lot of these retreats where they've been beautiful, but also very heavy in a lot of these modalities like breath work and inner child work and crying and all of that. And it was such a lovely contrast where, yes, things like meditation and breath work and journaling and all of this stuff is powerful, but also painting and sitting on the beach and talking and allowing is just as much,
Mhm.
if in a lot of instances, not more to lean into. So when I got home, I put up my painting in my room. So I look at it every day, and that's my whiteboard.
I love it.
Julie. So
Yeah.
that's my kind of reminder. And I think it was, yeah, the 2 days after, because it was Tuesday. I got home on Sunday. So Tuesday, I was leading my first master class with my business. And it was such beautiful timing because I think about if I hadn't had this weekend and how that master class would have went, I'm sure it would have gone, lovely, but it was so effortless. Like it really felt so easy to do that because I think I was anchored in the knowing of that it always can be easy if I only choose for it to be. So I'm really trying to hold on to that moving forward and remembering, especially those moments of force, like taking a step back and, just thinking where can this be easy? Where am I making this hard on myself?
Mm. I love that. Mm. Julie, what do you got for us?
Yeah. I mean, my biggest takeaway, I mean, we shared on this video like all the fun things we did, the movie and the painting and coloring and writing cards and reading and sitting on the beach. I mean, like, think about that in 2.5 days, how much joy and fun that sounds like if you haven't experienced it. It was pretty joyful.
Mm.
Um, that's my on my whiteboard is focusing on joy and fun in life because I have just like many people have so many narratives around you only get to have fun if you've worked hard or
Mhm.
you only get to have fun if you've earned it. And I'm working to unwind that and recognizing that with joy and fun is the ease that Ewelina just talked about
Mhm.
and the peace that comes from that you can just be more creative and whatever it is that you who you want to be or what you want to really do, it comes from that place of finding the joy within you, and it really doesn't come from the force and
Mhm.
powering through it. It just that like now I start to cringe a little bit when I think about that, but it's a process for sure to
Mhm.
remind myself, which is why I wrote it on my whiteboard. And I still trip on it sometimes, like, oh yeah, I said I was going to focus on fun and joy.
Mhm.
So, but it's a great reminder, and I am very grateful for it.
Yeah. I mean, I think mine's right along with this ease and the joy. And it really, I mean, I do this in my day-to-day a lot. I've really shifted my life to leaning into the joy and the ease. But to actually hold space for others to do it. It's like you like onions, but does that mean everybody else like onions? That type of mentality of like, okay, I know it's working for me, but maybe it's like this some sort of placebo or, because I'm blah, 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 this way or that way. But it really showed me that, yeah, if you just lean in to being guided and trusting that every moment that feels easeful is the moment that's going to get you to the next moment that feels easeful, to the next moment that feels easeful. And the heavy weight will just kind of, you know, find its way out somehow. It just showed me that it is possible. What I always have thought in my heart, I mean, I think back to when I was big into that business group and chasing money, we got to have like three wishes for the world. You know, what would you have the world do? And at that point, I had done a psychedelic trip and really got to experience myself at this level of love and joy. And at that moment, that was my hope for everyone, that they could experience their authentic self for a day, because then you know what's actually possible. But I always thought it had to happen through something outside of you, right? A psychedelic, ayahuasca, you know, some sort of forced breath work, even holotropic breath work. And as I've unwinded, I knew for me this is possible. I feel like I'm on psychedelics every day in this place of love and joy. But this weekend just solidified that, like, if you just hold the space and you set the intention and you lean in and trust and truly only follow the ease, and every moment you feel the dis-ease, you just kind of like, no, I mean, we brought it to the front. We didn't have private thoughts. I shared with you guys about the yellow house and almost texting Patrick. And you shared about, you know, the fear that you had and shared with your boyfriend that you were going to be gone. And you, Ewelina, sharing about, you know, the fear around what's going on in your relationship recently. And then, you know, just we were just constantly sharing. And it was so beautiful. I mean, I think one moment I said something about something. I don't even remember what it was. And I took a shower later and I felt icky about it. I was like, I think that was the ego. And I immediately went out to Evelina. I was like, hey, I think this was, and she didn't see it that way. She's like, well, I appreciate that. But for me, it would have been like this heavy private thought of where the ego snuck in over the weekend if I wouldn't have just been like, boom, here it is. Doesn't matter. We don't care. Let's go. Um, I could go on forever. I was so happy. With just every moment. And many people would think that three is, you know, what do they say about three? It's like triangle, and then someone feels left out or this or that. And I mean, I feel like we were one all weekend. It didn't matter if there was 10 of us here or two of us here. Like it was just like we were seamlessly being guided all together.
Mhm.
Ah. Well, thank you guys so much for joining in and sharing. My hope for anyone listening is that maybe you are able to see that it doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be painful, that truly transformation and remembrance. I mean, I think the best way is through ease. I mean, I don't want to feel pain and suffering, but you know, sometimes we got to do that, but there is this option. And yeah, we'd love to hear below any comments you have or feedback or questions. I mean, I think, probably could have done a 4-hour debrief on this retreat, maybe a couple day debrief. So this was just like snippets of us sharing our heart, and we're so grateful for you tuning in today. Thank you so much.